You only have to walk through the streets of Cusco, Peru to see that something's wrong with what conventional archaeologists are telling us. Now what you're looking at here is Inca period construction. We can tell that because the Inca had bronze chisels and stone hammers. You can imagine that they could have done this kind of stone shaping using those tools. Now, less than 10 feet from that last shot I just took is this. And this is what is called the Coricancha. What you can tell is that this workmanship is far more refined than what we just saw. Now, the tightness of the fit of the stones at the Coricancha are so profound, as witnessed here, that in some places you can't fit a human hair in between these stones. And this wall is 38 inches thick, and it's perfect from the outside to the inside and throughout. Seamless. Now, how could that have been achieved with bronze chisels and stone hammers? The answer, of course, is that it could not have been. So the question is, how old is this wall, and who built it? Another thing you'll notice is the amazing glow that happens on the surfaces, or the contact surfaces, at the Coricancha. Well, some people are going to say, well, that's because people have been rubbing their fingers along the lines for hundreds of years, but that's nonsensical. It's only in the horizontal, not in the vertical. And so here we have a different form of construction again. This could very well be Inca. It's quite small stones, reasonably close fitting together, and above that, the Spanish style of construction. The thing is, if the Inca did appear in Cusco and found an abandoned city built by people of higher levels of technology, then they naturally, being very aesthetic people, would have tried to build their structures to in some way match that of the predecessors. And we see a lot of evidence of that. Now, the Inca attempted very fine joinery like this, as you can see, but if we look on the inside of the wall, like here, you can see that the fineness is only at the front. It separates out that way. So what they were trying to do was match the finish of the ancient work, but were not capable of doing it from the front to the back. So contrary to conventional thought, we're not looking at primitive work in the beginning and then advanced work later on. We're looking at advanced work first and then cruder work later. So the thing is, the Inca were a very stable society from their beginnings here in Cusco, about 1100 AD, until they were obliterated by the Spanish in 1533. So that would not explain why the construction style seems to be of higher quality lower down in a building and earlier on. Unless we're looking at the idea, possibly the fact, that a superior culture, technologically, existed in Cusco prior to the time of the Inca, and then the Inca built on top of those incredible constructions. And this is one of the most astonishing of all constructions in Peru. It's right in the city of Cusco, and you can see it's polygonal. And it's incredibly hard stone. This is andesite, andesitic granite. How could they have achieved this? How could the Inca have shaped stone like this with bronze chisels and stone hammers? It's not likely. And the only reason why this wall still exists is that when the Spanish arrived, they looked at it, thought of taking it apart to build their own buildings. They just gave up because the scale of the stone was too big. And actually this one corner tells the whole story. What you're looking at here is you're looking at Spanish adobe over top of Spanish foundation. And then behind me, here, you're looking at Inca work. And now, right in the same vicinity, we have this, which is megalithic. So what this is basically just a preamble to ongoing investigations of mine and others into the true origins, not only of the city of Cusco, but our history in general. I and many others do not believe that civilization simply goes back 5,000 or 6,000 years, but several thousand years before that. The story is getting far more interesting because we have geologists, engineers, oral traditions, and other experts who are telling us that what we're saying seems to be true. That Cusco, for example, is not a city that was started by the Inca. It was a city expanded by the Inca.
But anyway, mainstream archaeologists say, yeah, it's just brute strength, manpower, and tedious chipping away at the stone. You would think it would take them, whatever, weeks just to do one little stone, like one big stone, I should say. But the whole thing of why those things are really there is still a mystery. And then you have the knobs too. Mm-hmm. What do you think, Brian? What's your what would be your you got any explanation for that?
Well, like David says, literally in the 21st century, the modern archaeological explanation is that those pock marks were for shoving a tree trunk into to help lift it,
right?
And
lift
then,
it up.
Yep, shape it, bring it back down to fine tune it.
And even lift it up again, fine tune it
again.
a little bit more, drop it, keep lifting it, dropping it. But you'll notice that not all the stones have this either. Right. It's on maybe 10% of the stones. And other stones have, instead of that, a knob coming out, okay? And others just don't have any of that at all. You know, whenever you're working, in my mind, with 100-ton blocks of stone, 50-ton blocks of stone, Baalbek and stuff are 1,000-ton blocks of stone. Again, the mainstream's always like, well, it's just brute force and manpower, and you just get so many thousand people hauling a rock, you're going to move it. I mean, mathematically, you can figure that out. But the big question is, you know, why are people trying to do something that is so obviously incredibly difficult? Okay, I mean, and even modern engineers are looking at this going like, wow, you know, why would you even do this? And what I always maintain is whoever was doing this and how they did it, it was easy for them. Okay, it wasn't some very difficult thing to do, but something they could quite easily do. And that means, and let's forget about quarrying and cutting the stones, but just lifting them and moving them. And in my mind, that really takes some kind of levitation, anti-gravity, turning the stones weightless somehow, which could be with sound. And acoustics is possible, perhaps earth energies, your anti-gravity ray that just holds them and then moves them into place. Another way, here's how a modern construction company would do it, I imagine. They would build giant cranes, like in a dockyard or something. And those cranes would lift the stones up, drop them down.
But how do you retrieve your cable that you were holding the stone?
Well, yeah, no, I mean, I don't think it was done that way. No, I mean, it's in my mind, it's some form of levitation, anti-gravity, of making these stones weightless. And rather than it being done by so many thousands of people huffing and puffing and pulling, just a few people could have done this, in theory. I mean, you know. But of course, modern archaeologists, I mean, they just can't perceive that or fathom that anybody could have ever done that. So, I mean, it does remain a mystery, but the mainstream archaeologists will, I mean, they're like, well, it's, you know, they wanted to do it and they made a big effort and they did it.
Stand there as well.
Like this whole rock. But that is just brilliant up here. I just love that.
So would this be a limestone then? Or is it?
You'd have to do tests with some hydrochloric acid to see. It looks like mudstones, broken up mudstone fragments.
Would seem to be many, many thousands of years old. But once again, the mainstream archaeologists saying that, you know, the Incas were doing this just 100 years or so for the Spanish got here.
Yeah, right.
So
But also, if you notice, it looks like this stone and that stone may have been attached in the distant past, as well as the one to the left, and that the cutting would have been done before the break. All these breaks.
a break, that's right, and that maybe this is a stone that broke and then fell down or something.
Maybe they're upside down.
But it kind of seems like that it had broken and been flipped over. Although sort of that wall is pretty straight, and this one too. It's baffling, and no one can really figure this out.
No.
Then you have what look like stairs here.
Yeah, the upside down staircase.
Staircase, yeah.
They could just be upside down.
So it is possible that all the cutting was done, and then later there was a major cataclysm. But how many thousands of years ago?
There must have been some, because otherwise why are you spending the time and energy doing
Well,
it?
and once again, is it so difficult and time consuming for them to do this? And why? Or was it some easy thing to do where they could, I mean, maybe some guy, one or two guys just did this in a day.
In terms of weathering, like of that surface there, do you have any idea how long it would take if it was once smooth and now it's so stippled?
Cutting thing, and they use it in mining. But this is kind of interesting here how they've created
If
a
that
narrow
initially was smooth, it was
wall
obviously
here,
boxed
they're
off.
cutting it here,
Uh-huh.
they're
Got
cutting
broken
it here,
off somehow.
Right.
So you take that broken off surface and then you weather it.
Yeah, but how long do you think the weathering would have taken to create a surface like that? Hundreds of years or thousands?
Think of a tombstone.
Oh, okay. It doesn't really last that long.
Yeah.
Yeah. Yeah, crouch down low to start with.
This first part's kind of low. Whoops. Keep your head down. Who's your mama? Alright, let's try and see if this thing works. Aha, got my glow stick now. Watch it there, Hugh.
Yeah, watch your feet too. They're a little bit sticking up and stuff.
Alright, here, let's go ahead and pass this thing back.
Okay.
And we'll
There's a glow stick.
Thank you.
Alright, and there's the exit.
Yeah.
Here we'll stand here. So keep passing that glow stick back to people, okay? You're almost to the exit right here. Okay, stop in and let them catch up. Here, let's put people in the real dark spot.
Good day, Glenn.
I do.
Good. So a lot of these weird cutout areas here. And the cave we were in was probably natural, but was enhanced. Much like this one, another one we're going to go through.
Very tight. If I get stuck. Oh, almost got stuck.
But they can't stop us.
This and the other one, they look like something from the future, not from the past.
Yeah,
It's like out of Star Trek.
it is. It's a Star Trek set.
I've seen that before. Man.
Ah, the portal.
There are a few
It's worth it.
later.
Jerry Gold's getting the
It
code.
was worth the walk. Here.
Yeah, look at this. It's incredible.
The ancestral, it was more old than the Incas. But the Incas, when they came here, they found this beautiful temple and they still were shipping here. Now, also, I have a shape here. Look at, that is the eye. It's actually a big puma head, yeah? Eye. That's little here corners, always three. That was part of the ear part. And it's missing, of course. You can see clearly. Yeah, eye. That's been the mouth of puma. Where is exactly the connection? And these two protuberance here means connection, and that's the teeth of puma. Yeah? And that's probably a doorway also here. But that's in the local philosophy is called chacana, you know, the three levels of the world. So everywhere you will find, look at, three corners. Three corners. The number three, it was not only Inca, it was more oldest. Yeah? About this window, it's another doorway. So in so many places, like at Puno, you will find kind of these doors. It was like a doorways as well. Probably they can make connections between that temples. Of course, this is not the real level of that. Most of this soil where you are standing up, so came from this hole. Also, it was nice ornamental place. It was. The people who climbed it, you saw really clearly some windows there, still on one side. So making excavation, probably we can find more evidence, more important things just here. So coming at night, I can, so many times at night you can feel energy running around here. Almost if you come by yourself, you can just, can be scary, yeah? Really, really strong energy here. Also when you are, only you here, you can feel energy. Now it's so impossible, but because we are a big group. But also look at, yeah? It's pointing to Cusco also here. Cusco is in the south part. So all this mountain, so I see a face in front. But you see the big hole
Uh-huh.
in front? That is one of the eye. Yeah, the right eye. The left side is almost disappearing. The mudslide is almost covering, and you can see the big nose checking us. Look at
Uh-huh.
checking here. And kind of arm is
face.
coming out from the mountain also. See? So focus on this hole, yeah? That's one of the eye.
Okay, here we have the horizontal dimension, which is almost exactly 4 feet. So could we have this one now, please? No, the vertical. To get the proportion on the, yeah, up, yeah, where that is, perfect. Okay, so now we have the vertical, which is 59 3/4 inches. And then can you also do these two as well, please? Same thing, horizontal then vertical? So 35 3/4 horizontal. $51 5/8.
Do the bottom?
So on the bottom, we have
Hard to know whether that's straight.
we have an outside dimension of 49 3/8. So we have
That's off. That's not, they didn't have that straight. Yeah.
okay. No, it's still 49 3/8. So it's a slight taper on the way down. Internal 37 1/4 inches. And then could we have the could you do the inside? Like this, the depth here.
Hard with the curvature. Eh?
That's okay. No,
Actually,
just a
curvature.
basic idea at the top. So here we have 18 3/4, and at the bottom 21. So there's an internal taper as well.
Do you hear about el fenómeno El Niño happening in South America, in the Pacific Ocean? So probably this phenomenon killed most of this pre-Incas culture. But the Incas were prepared for that. They were really smart. And these people create this kind of storage house located mostly in the top of the mountains. Because why? In these places you can feel more strong windy. If here you said that the wind is really strong, imagine up there, how strong is that? Just to keep really fresh these crops, these dry crops. We're talking about dry potatoes, dry meat, dry corn, that they usually, in all these valleys, you will find the best corn of Peru. Really big white corn, almost 40 centimeters. And the grains are really big. As you can see, between January and February month, what is this the right time to take this harvest corn? Yeah. Between the larger building, could you focus in the large building up there? So on the left side, you can see a rocky side who has 2 cracks. Could you find it? So that's actually is a big face, yeah? Could you see the face?
He is.
So actually we already see this face in the mountain. Look at in the picture, yeah? First. Focus on the picture first.
See the mouth and the eye?
Look in the frame here. Look here.
Straight in front of you.
Look at the big building.
Oh yeah, here I see.
Yeah, that's Viracocha.
Oh yeah, okay.
Yeah.
Yeah? So actually the idea is to have this perspective of this face, yeah? So what the Incas represent here, it was the main god, the universal god called Viracocha. So actually in the top of the head of this face you can see a building So this building, it was called chuku, or ceremonial hat. Yeah, only the high-level people in that time used to wear in that things. So that represents that Incas probably want to represent the main god. Already this god is carrying all the granaries or storage house. The Aymara language, yeah, it means the same thing. Tunupa or Wiracocha. Wiracocha is Quechua word, and Tunupa probably is from Aymara language, yeah. So still there is controversies about which language, if was Quechua or Aymara first. But the thing is that almost all the Andes here, or most of the people in the Andes talk Quechua, yeah, and Aymara only a little portion of in the Lake Titicaca, the Inca side, yeah. Could you see? So this terraces has a nice shape. If you see in this next page, it's a llama. So if you climbing this mountain, you can see all the where we are now here has all this profile, yeah, all this shape. So the llama, like for example, there is another place called Pisac in the Secret Valley, and look at the shape of that. Machu Picchu, tomorrow we're gonna be there, and Machu Picchu has so many different shapes. Depend or according in which part of the mountains you are, you can see different shapes. For example, hummingbird. Once they died, so they have to go first their bodies inside of the earth, returning to the Mother Earth. But the soul or the spirits, they just waiting for the condor spirits who can carry this spirit until the celestial world, and they will reborn again through the Mother Earth. Yeah, that's why most of the sites here it was made by stone. That is one of the points. They took a lot of time probably to make these buildings only by stones. Why? Because they don't care about the time. Yeah, because they believe in the reincarnation. If they died, they will return again, and they will use the same buildings as their houses as well. That's why sometimes I heard that, and I proved that when I cross some unexplored places in the mountains here, some urban sectors. We don't know exactly from which time they are. So when you go inside, you can see a normal living room there, a normal house, probably for one family. But always there is a mummy inside, or rest of the bones. What does mean that? Sometimes these ancient people used to live close to their dead people. They make a little altar inside of their houses, and they always worship these people, waiting to return again, yeah, to these lives.
We're climbing up to the Temple of the Sun at Ollantaytambo, outside of Cusco in Peru. And here we'll find clear evidence that a very ancient culture, much earlier than the Inca, were here. And they were megalithic builders. They were able to work and move stone up to possibly in excess of 60 tons in weight. And I will show you also where the quarry is, because the quarry is not that close to here. It's actually on the side of another mountain. So the Inca built what you're looking at, but where we're going, up there, they did not, exactly. The question is, who were the ancient builders who did the construction prior to the time of the Inca? So we're going to look at 3 different time periods, 3 different construction techniques. This is fine Inca work. The stairway is Inca. But now we move into finer work.
So the theory is that we used this probably, it was like little protuberance just to help to carry that. They put it kind of ramps here, and they can carry it on just to put it where is the right place. The other thing is that probably the Incas leave that representing as a breast of Mother Earth. Yeah. The other point, the other theory said that probably this is that's produced shape when the sun hit really strong here. So as you know, the material when the sun hit really strong, the material changes or grow a little bit, change the perform. You understand that? Perform. So to don't happen that, so the Incas they leave that things because all the heat of the sun, when the heat inside of this stone, can go out really easy, and the material can change. Otherwise, we can see the walls is quite open. But about this open, this happened for aeroquake, and probably the Spanish when they came here, as at the stones that we saw down there in the base part, there is a lot of big stones there, just everywhere. So we're part of these walls one time, yeah. So the Spanish they pushed down until this place because the theories said that probably the Spanish want to kill everything that connect with the Inca religion, and that is Inca religion actually, yeah. Really huge stones.
So here you're looking at some of the finest stonework in the Americas and possibly in the world. And the thing is, if the Inca had built this, then why is the work above inferior? This is not the work of the Spanish or contemporary. This is ancient workmanship. The finest workmanship is lower, no evidence of tool marks whatsoever, and these curious knobs which appear seemingly randomly, but Rogelio, our guide, has come up with a very compelling theory based most likely on what his ancestors knew, and that's that these could actually be functional in terms of energy release to make sure that the wall remains stable as it heats up and cools down during the day. And if you kind of look at it, in some cases they're not random. This one would be in a very strategic place for expansion and contraction. Possibly that one too. But where we're going is even higher and even larger stonework. And again, the conventional idea is that the Inca had a bunch of slaves who did this. It's far more likely that we're looking at evidence of an ancient lost civilization, possibly called the Pirawas. Now the question is, how was this work done? And it wasn't done using conventional tools. I think what we have here is an example of a stone being cut, but it was never completed. You see the groove that runs through the stone is incredibly even. It's not a crack. I think this is evidence of the ancient machine that was used to cut it. This is one block weighing at least 40 tons. And you have to stand back in order to actually see it. But also the seam, you see the seam between the top one and the lower ones. You can take your fingers and run them back and forth and it's like glass. So this was not done using bronze chisels and stone hammers. This is definite high technology, and that the seam is so tight it goes straight through that stone more than 2 feet. And so as an overview, we have this incredible megalithic size of work here. Below it, incredible precision, mortarless construction. And then we have what is known for sure as Inca work.
a group of Swiss, French, and Dutch hikers. This is a perfect pyramidal mountain, and it has a very high difficulty level for the climbers.
Gracias. Yet another trip to Machu Picchu in Peru.
Oh, really?
So
They were so
got
kid.
to borrow her. Yeah, it was just the four of us in our seat.
Other places they use pre-Inca foundations, but in this case, just they found huge rocks in whole mountain because they use local stones here. Because we are into the white granite rocky formation. The location here is perfect because we are into the Apucuna. Apu is a mountain and Apucuna mountain.
Santiago, que são os sobrenomes de lá da cidade. Então, isso prova que este lugar sempre foi visitado por pessoas superintensas.
This is the beautiful cave. This is the temple of the Pachamama, the temple of the Mother Earth, because inside are some trapezoidal niches because they keep some human bodies inside always in the fetal position. But the process of mummification just was for the very important people. Local priests, the local government, because the regular people, they put in the regular cemeteries, but in the same position, in the fetal position. The temple of the sun. Look at from here, much better. Wooden door, security system like this. And this is one rock. Look at the trapezoidal shape here. This is part of the Temple of the Sun. Good quality architecture.
One person in every window.
We are now in the Inca Palace, King's House.
Is that window anything by design or just? No, that was, I mean, just giving the explanation that here you need to.
Had already been living there.
No roof here because look at two round stones with wooden. They use like a mirror for astronomical observation.
So we're at Silustani, which is southern Peru near Lake Titicaca, elevation 13,000 feet. And what you see behind me are the remains of a damaged tower called a chulpa. Now most mainstream archaeologists will contend that these towers were destroyed probably by the Spanish for building material, but I will show you evidence, as in that you just saw as well, that this was the scene of a massive explosion several thousand years ago. So what you can see from the tower that I just showed you is that half of it's gone. If it was being taken apart for building material, it's more likely that they would have taken it apart more evenly than that. But what I'm contending is that there was a massive explosion that happened, causing the westward sides of all of the chulpas to be literally blown apart. The large square one that you saw in the beginning of the video, some of the stones from there are several hundred feet away. Who would take a giant stone of many tons down and then roll it away in that direction? So look at the possible theory that what this was not a tomb originally for some ruler, but it was an acoustic generator. If you look at the shape, it flares out from the bottom to the top, which doesn't make good building sense, but the interior, there is an entrance, and the interior is beehive shape. The stone in the core is called andesite or diorite, which is very hard. And then it's quite densely packed in there with white clay, which is from another area. It's not from this location. So if you had a tone or a sound on the inside, that sound could have been enhanced by the denseness of the diorite rock, with to some degree the clay acting as insulation. Then you have an empty or hollow layer, and the structure is surrounded by basalt, a different stone, not as dense, and those divots you see in it could, again, have possibly enhanced sound. But for what reason?
The battery on the meter, it completely just drained it.
Meaning that this is a highly energetic area?
It means it needed that battery energy. Yeah, they'll take the energy it will add. All energy needs a pathway. So what the theory is that battery drain, the energy off of these join the present energy. So let me just switch out some batteries and see what we get.
Okay. So earthquake damage would have caused more or less even, I would think, damage to all sides of this structure, but it's mainly on the western side that the destruction happened. So that seems to be that some kind of force moved from east to west. That could have been an earthquake. or possibly something else. Okay, yes you do. Okay, we're going to go inside. Now this opening faces east, and each one of the openings in these towers faces east. Could be for the rising of the sun, or it could be that the energy is running in that direction.
Dun, 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 dun.
It's too dark in here to really record anything.
No,
The sound
LA, there's
in
nothing in
here
here. You're
is
good.
quite amazing.
We're good?
Absolutely nothing. I did check for bats. There's nothing.
Oh, man.
We're good.
And we're hypothesizing here. But when it was functional, what did it do? I mean, how did it work? Did it resonate sound? It's certainly an enigma, and you can see it goes up and up and up. There's nothing here but a dirt floor. We really have no idea how it functioned. We only know this, and no one can take this away from us, that whoever built this were master builders. They did it with such precision. They did it with a deliberate skill and a deliberate purpose. They had an end in mind. And they hauled stones from miles away to construct a very specific shape. So, you know, I don't really think it was to bury the king or a few mummies. In my opinion, this was some sort of a transmitter, perhaps, of energy. No idea. But it's all been lost to us. And we only have what the signs tell us in the park, which we don't believe.
So there's often a presumption by the general public and by academics as well that older cultures, as in pre-Columbian cultures, were more primitive than us because they didn't have cell phone technology or something. But what we've witnessed here is that you have megalithic builders in this area, we don't know when, several thousand years ago, who had the technology of being able to build these massive chulpa towers. And lightning rods have actually been set up on this hill in order to ground any lightning that occurs here, because this area is very susceptible to lightning. Not just because it's a higher hill, it's not as high as the surrounding area, but it could be the residual energy that is present here in this site that causes the lightning to want to strike here. What we're looking at, I think, is an example of lost ancient technology, the capability to not only sense but possibly even harness the subtle energies of the earth and utilize them, if for nothing else than for the storage of seed, because even the local stories here state that if you put seeds in a round building, that the products that you get from those seeds is much of greater quality and larger than if you put them into a square building. So it's quite intriguing, if for no other reason than for agricultural purposes, but possibly for more esoteric or even other pragmatic reasons. One little postscript thing is we did find the andesite quarries. There are several here in this plateau area at Silistani, and that of course was the material put in the core, quite smallish stones, but the huge megalithic blocks, which are made of basalt, there are no basalt quarries on this peninsula. So the question is, how far away did those basalt blocks, some weighing at least 20 tons, have to be cut, moved, and put into place? The mystery continues. I hope you noticed that when I hit the stone, or did, it made a tone. Now this is the debris field from the chulpa that you see in the background. It's highly unlikely that these stones were taken apart from the chulpa itself. Today we are at Pumapunku in the Altiplano of Bolivia once again, and the focus of this video is going to be on possibilities of catastrophic damage happening to this site in the very distant past. We're talking more than 12,000 years ago. It's likely that a lot of the damage to the site was done by an ancient cataclysm that came from Lake Titicaca, which is over on my left, and buried this site in a wall or a cascade of mud. And we're also going to be using Tesla meters in order to measure the andesite stone for possible magnetic anomalies. This is an excavation that was done, going down 2 to 3 feet, and all of these stones were found in place and in situ. So the question is, what would happen if they dug even deeper, which they so far have refused to do?
Mi amor, 1 second, I'm gonna take one Kenneth. Is that okay with Brian? Acá, párate acá, Kenneth. Siéntate. I'm gonna go and explain a little bit. Just
Sí.
take the pictures.
Sí. Esto está volviéndose loco en diferentes. Hay lugares que no se mueve nada y en otros.
Está así. Es que tiene que ser así.
Sí, sí. Les quiero una foto con Brian. No tenemos aquí ni una.
This is one of the most intriguing stones at Pumapunku, and I'll film the actual stone afterwards. But what we're reading here, this is the base micro Tesla reading of 23 or 24. As I go in close to the stone, 27, 30, 39, so not much difference. Then it drops down to 17. As I turn the corner, 50, 65, and as I pass by the vertical cut, it's at 100. And then as I pass by that vertical slit, it immediately drops down to base. So this particular spot here is especially magnetic in alignment with the groove. We also took calipers here, and these holes, which are all the same diameter, are perfectly spaced. And this groove is perfectly aligned to the edge of this surface going down. And the flatness is believed by some who have measured it to possibly be within 2/10,000ths of an inch of being laser perfect. And back.
If you take a look at the magnetic needle, it stays horizontal and level here. But then when you bring it over to this point here, the magnetic field is so strong that it's causing the needle to dip, and there's an angulation of that needle. So it just kind of gives you some information about the magnetic field that's being generated by this stone. So but the magnetic field in this one is different. Okay, here's another weird thought. The move it, or the magnetic fields are incidental due to the forming of the stones.
They did use magnetic fields in the past.
So many more questions now. You know?
I'm now going to film with the Gauss meter across the face of one of the H blocks.
Yes. Not many others up here.
Maybe it's just direction this way.
Put together. All right. It's easy. Get in the Google and
So that's pretty amazing that on the outside left edge of the H block, the Gauss meter was reading over 400. And then when it got into the center of the H block, it went down to like 10, 20, or 30, and then back up, and to the right, it goes back up over 400. So is that the nature of the andesite stone itself, or is it the actual shape that is causing this quite dramatic alteration in the magnetometer's registration? So as you can see, we're measuring major magnetic anomalies at Puma Punku this time, because we're focusing on that, and also the catastrophic damage. I'm inside one of the channels of excavation, and you're going to see some stones in here that look like they were thrown around like they were styrofoam.
we should have tried this with this heat. This line.
Of the stone, but with magnetic field lines.
This is so beautiful.
Not before. The Incas appear in this site after the destruction.
How do they move? How do they move?
Color in the same stone.
The kind of earthquake that drained Lake Titicaca.
Comes
Yeah.
So this is the perimeter of Puma Punku. And what you have is the first 4 levels are red sandstone. The quarry is 8 miles over those mountains. And the red sandstone does not react to the Tesla meter. But then the 5th level is the andesite, and it was going, or is going crazy with the Tesla meter on it. So it's almost like there may have been that the 5th level was like an energetic band that went all the way around the complex. That's news to me. "12,000 years ago, this bottom step was where Lake Titicaca rose up to. So is it possible that this ancient staircase, which is so heavily eroded, is in fact the staircase that led to Lake Titicaca, which is now 7 miles that way?"